when it comes to Ismail Haniyeh and how he was killed, there's been a lot of speculation in the last days about the method of assassination used. So we heard some reports in the Israeli press that he was using a hacked or infected phone, and they tracked him that way, and that's how they got to him. This is possible. I don't know. But I find it very difficult to believe that, knowing about Pegasus, and we've known for a couple of years now about this Pegasus spyware, which compromises iPhones specifically, although there are Android versions as well. I find it very difficult that Haniyeh's security detail would allow him to use an iPhone, and I don't know, it just seems a bit sloppy. I could be wrong, we don't know, but I think that the more likely thing is that they simply tracked him with human assets on the ground, okay? Again, when you have VIPs like Haniyeh, or diplomats, their security details are bulging, okay? You can tell that this is a VIP, there's a security detail, there's a convoy, and they're being moved to a place. It's not difficult to follow them. It's really not, okay? If you want to do it and you're a professional intelligence agency, it's easy. You don't need to hack their phone. They're very, it's a very clear convoy to follow. Now, the thing is, if you look at also the way that he was killed, they're saying that they planted a bomb inside of the guest house he was staying at, a couple of months ago even, that they snuck this in. Why do the Israelis say these things? They say these things because they want to project an aura, an illusion of technological supremacy and intelligence supremacy. And they do this every single time. And they do this in a manner that is really, typical of counterintelligence and propaganda. What you do is you'll have your agents go and, talk to their friends who work in the press, and you plant the story. And we saw this with Fakhrizadeh, who's the Iranian nuclear scientist who was killed in late 2020, I believe. They claimed that, they had smuggled in some AI-controlled gun, and they did it piece by piece. They come out with like a movie script. It's a movie script. And they get it published in the New York Times. And it sounds real, and it could be real. But what is the likelihood of that? Look at the Israelis and how their so-called supreme intelligence failed on October 7th. The Israelis don't know what hit them on October 7th. And every single day since October 7th, they have been getting pounded on the battlefield. I'm not talking about bombing civilians. Anyone can bomb civilians. I'm talking about fighting other men, other, soldiers, guerrilla fighters on the battlefield. Where is their intelligence? Where is their amazing supremacy? Show it to me. What goals have they achieved? What strategic victories do they have to speak of? None. Fuck all. So I find this very difficult to believe that they hacked his phone and that they planted a bomb in the exact guest house months prior. Get out of here. Who the hell plants bombs? What a pain in the ass. Why would you plant a bomb in 2024 when you have drones who can come in a few minutes, or planes that can come, get there in minutes, fire a missile and get out? Why the hell would you go through the trouble of smuggling in a bomb and then getting someone to find out where the goddamn guest house is and predict it and plant it in the walls? Jesus Christ, what a pain in the ass. Who would do that? What a sloppy operation. What a waste of resources. So I find this very hard to believe. It's impractical. But if you believe it, it sounds like, oh wow, they're so sophisticated. They were able to get agents in the country and find out which apartment he's staying at and put it, it sounds, it's like a movie, but it doesn't make sense. Not only that, but we have confirmation from the people that were in the guest house or on other floors, and I'll play you a clip in a second, the Iranian government themselves, people who saw the site saying that what killed Haniyeh came from the outside. It was fired from the outside. Now, the Iranian government are saying it's a 7-kilogram projectile. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if someone fired it from, it was an RPG, or whether it was an airstrike or a drone strike. It doesn't make a difference. At the end of the day, they found his location and they killed him. I don't understand this story where they planted a bomb inside. This is logistically impractical. It's annoying and time-consuming and dangerous and risky and stupid and could go wrong. Whereas with a missile, you're much more likely to actually hit the target, and it's easier. Now, I'll play you Alistair Crook. Listen to what he has to say.
I happen to know a person who was in that house when he was assassinated. When I used to go to Tehran, I would meet him. He's a friend from Hamas. and he was on the fourth floor, I think, and Haniyeh was on the second, or the other way around. So they were very close together. And he said, they came back. Haniyeh came back from the inauguration about 11:30 at night, and then they sat around talking about what had happened in Beirut and discussing that. And then Haniyeh went up to his room about 1:30, and about 3:30, there was this huge thing that shook the building. He said he thought he was in an earthquake, but it was clearly, he dashed down and found that his leader was dead, as he put it, and his bodyguard was dead, and that the whole of the outside wall was missing, and the roof was all falling down. And he said it's absolutely clear it came from the outside. There was a penetration through the wall of some projectile of some sort. So the sense, for Iran, of humiliation, of honor. This was their guest staying in a formal guest house, like, the guest house the White House has, if you like, the one.
The Blair House, right.
The Blair House. Putting a missile into the Blair House and assassinating.
Oh, the New York Times.
In any case, I think his point is rather well taken when he talks about the projectile coming from the outside. This makes the most sense. And if you look at the modus operandi of the Israelis, they usually, consistently prefer to use drones and planes to assassinate people. I just talked about the 2 Al Jazeera journalists earlier. They hit them with a drone, right? They hit them from the air. I don't know if it was a drone or plane, but they certainly hit them from the air with a missile. The precision was astounding. And I don't mean that in a good sense whatsoever. On the contrary, I mean it in a devilish, cunning, conniving manner. So, we've seen them do this with Soleimani. It was a drone that killed Soleimani. I think he was, as I said before, I think he was tracked on the ground by human resources, by human assets, and then they used a jet or, a drone to kill him. And the problem is that when you have a target like that on your back, you can't really do anything. You can't stop, short of, of course you have radar and you can detect planes coming into your airspace and so on. But you saw how Yemen, for example, and Hezbollah have their undetectable drones. Who's to say the Israelis also and the Americans don't have undetectable drones? Of course they do. I'm certain that they do. And when you have such a high-profile target, you're more inclined to use it for a case such as this. So, it's not a question of simply, we'll find it on the radar and then shoot it down. It's not that simple. In any case, I don't know how they killed him, or whether it really matters in the end. I think the only sense in which it matters is that Iran has to improve its security. In the end, martyrdom is considered an honor. Dying for your country, for your land, to liberate your land. Palestinians consider that an honor. The resistance consider that an honor. The Israelis go and run away to Ben Gurion. So they don't understand the idea that you would lay down your life for your land, because they have multiple passports. Their parents were born somewhere else, or they themselves were born somewhere else. They're colonizers, not immigrants, colonizers, literally colonizers. They're settlers. So they don't have an attachment to the land the same way that Arabs, Muslims, and people from the Levant do. But nevertheless, it's not any less of a tragedy or any less of a loss. It's meant to be a terrorist act. It's like I said, Haniyeh was a statesman. He was a politician. He was not a military mind or a commander. Doesn't mean he was lacking in those areas, but nevertheless, it doesn't impact anything on the battlefield. We're still seeing the attacks on Israeli military positions. The resistance are going to respond and actually respond, not just saying they will, one day. There's actually going to be something. So, now what's important is for them to reestablish deterrence. That's what's important. Because for once, the Israelis are having to battle on multiple fronts and on their own turf. On occupied soil. It's not their turf, but I think my point is well taken. In the end, this is really, they have to improve their security. There's no question about it. Losses like this they're simply unacceptable. They're unacceptable. There's no way around it. The criticism has to be made. And I think there will be improvements, and I'll tell you why. Because every time that leaders have been assassinated in the resistance didn't lose its head. I know there are some people losing their heads, you know, like, oh my God, it's the end of the world, and thinking like, you know, this is, oh, it's such a humiliation and it's over. No. The resistance has lost many leaders that in their respective time periods were perhaps more important than Haniyeh, you could argue, right? You could argue that, you know, Arafat, when he was poisoned, was maybe more important than Haniyeh. You could argue maybe that Sheikh Ahmed Yassin was more important than Haniyeh. The point is, you know, or Soleimani, for example, that guy's a military commander, right? So strategically, you would think much more important for results on the battlefield. And yet, the resistance always made the necessary improvements and adjustments and came out on top. It's been an upward trajectory. And it's been consistently on that path for decades. It's not going to change. So people need to stop losing their heads, even though, you know, it's still a terrorist attack. It's meant to shock. It's meant to subdue. It's meant to subvert. It's meant to, terrorize people, literally, in the sense of the word, and force them into submission and make them comply. It's not a battlefield victory. It's not a military victory. It's not a military target. It's just straight up terrorism, really. So people need to stop losing their heads. And you have even some scummy people trying to make this about, oh my God, don't trust Iran. Iran are Shia Muslims, and trying to make this about Shia versus Sunni. Please shut up, really. I mean, this is the scummiest thing you can do. Did Hamas say anything about this? Did they speak in that way? Did they accuse Iran of anything? No. So shut up, please. Don't make this about religion and start talking about Shia and this and that. These people, don't trust people like that, because they're basically doing Israel's work for them. Israel wants nothing more than division. That's the whole point. It's like cause a massive disaster in the enemy's camp or your adversary's camp. Cause people to go wild and start fighting amongst themselves. This is a victory. It's like a double victory. You kill the figure, and then you cause chaos within the opponent's camp. So people trying to make this like cause divisions, either political or religious, within the resistance, are basically doing Israel's work for them. They may not know it, but that's what they're doing. And I mean, they should be ignored. They're a bunch of idiots, because where do you think Hamas get their rockets from? Where do you think Hamas get their support from, militarily, politically, internationally? Without Iran, there would be no Palestinian resistance left. Without Syria and Iran getting the weapons to the resistance in Lebanon, in Palestine, there would be nothing. Who would be helping? Egypt? You think the crooked president of Egypt, or the king of Morocco, or the king of Jordan, or Saudi Arabia are going to save the Palestinians? Look what they've done. So don't make this about religion, and don't make this about anything else. You know, you have a camp of allies that have been helping each other for decades. This is not the moment to lose your head and, act like it's the end of the world. It's not. And I think, if I may say so, I think that, if Haniyeh were here, he might echo the exact same words. And as a matter of fact, when other people were killed in the resistance, did you ever hear anyone saying these kinds of comments about, making it about religion, or saying, oh, Iran this and Iran that? No, you didn't hear that, because divisiveness leads to a house divided on itself will collapse, right? This is how the saying goes. And that's equally true in politics. Divide and conquer is a typical classical imperialist strategy. Don't do the enemy's work for them. Don't do the adversary's work for them. That's just silly. That's a waste of time. But I think it's interesting, nevertheless. I have to, it's my job to report on what's happening, what may have happened. We don't have the conclusive results about this attack and how it was conducted. But I'm sticking with what I said. I think it was human assets on the ground tracking him, and they did it via the air. There's a small likelihood they could have done it via shoulder-fired missile or rocket, or also done it via. They could have set up an ATGM somewhere on another rooftop. Of course, anything is possible. This is even the explosives. The story with the explosives in the apartment is possible. But what is likely? It's likely from the air. So we'll wait and see what the resistance actually do, and I expect they'll be hitting. In my opinion, I think, although I don't want to make projections, but I'm just trying to comprehend what they mean by studied response. I mean, when you look at the list of targets they've hit so far, they've barely left anything to hit. I mean, figuratively speaking, of course the Israelis still have targets, but what's left to hit? They've hit all their Iron Dome batteries, not all of them, but basically taken out various elements of it, either batteries, command and control, radar. They've destroyed the entire defensive line in the north. They've got them pinned down in Gaza. again, what's left to hit? I suppose maybe Tel Aviv and Haifa. But again, you look at Tel Aviv, Yemen hit it just the other week. So, you know, I think hitting a petrochemical storage site might be a bit too much. That you want to leave targets in case there's actual all-out war, hot war, like to the point that it's, you know, forget it, apocalypse. You want to leave something to hit. So Dimona, for example, the nuclear site, you're not going to strike that now. You know, you would call nuclear, you'd cause, nuclear fallout and radiation for the whole region. So you want to save something for an apocalypse, right? But seriously, you want to save some targets for a rainy day. This is not that rainy day. It has to be dissuasive. It has to be deterrent, or rather establish deterrence, but not more than that. You don't want to go too far because then you're escalating and you're doing what the Israelis did, and that doesn't benefit anyone. Remember something. Remember, this is very important. Things staying the way they are, even if hypothetically they never respond to Haniyeh's killing, they could still be in an advantage. If the Israelis start bombing Tehran and Beirut regularly, then no, because then, there's no more deterrence. But my point is that you see what's been going on for the last months. Israel is losing international support. More and more people are protesting against Israel. They've lost legitimacy. They're being tried, in the world court. People want to cut off arms sales. You look at their military situation. They're losing against Hamas in 10 months, going off for 10 months now. They can't get rid of Hezbollah. Hezbollah is just setting all the settlements on fire. It's like boiling a frog. Slowly boiling a frog, right? It's like salami tactic. These are different terms that have the same meaning. In the end, you're slowly destroying the Israeli economy. You're grinding their military down, like in a war of attrition, because that's what it is. The blockade in Yemen, for example, is also adding to that immensely. So, by every metric, even the number of people coming to work, the workforce in Israel, 17% haven't come back to work. Thousands, tens of thousands of businesses shutting down. Even if things stay the way they are, it's, Israel is finished. That's what you have to understand. So we don't need some apocalyptic war or some nonsense like that to liberate Palestine. It will come about naturally, even if it stays the way it is, because Israel is at such a disadvantage. But anyway, we'll see what happens. I think it will be in the coming days. But again, I don't want to make any predictions. I think it's just the indicators certainly seem to show that. But anyway, we'll see what happens. Again, YouTube demonetized my channel because I'm not allowed to say naughty things about Israel. Telling the truth is forbidden. So if you are able to donate a few dollars on PayPal or on a monthly basis on Patreon, please consider doing it because it would really help me continue my journalism and support independent media. So I'd be very grateful. And the links are in the description and also in the chat. Thank you guys very much again for all your donations and all your kind comments. I appreciate it very much.